Good morning, friends. We're doing STEM outside today. We've got some lovely weather, and Spencer and I are in the garden, and so is Millie. I took everyone on a field trip today. We're gonna pop out and see what's going on. So I brought everybody back here. We've got the worms. We've got the snails. Uh-oh, someone's escaping. Gonna put him back in. There you go, Gary. Right, go eat your cucumber. We've got my co-star and faithful friend, Madam Millie. And we've got some new friends that we're gonna be introduced to today that just came in the mail. We've got some caterpillars, and I don't know if you can see what these are. Can you tell what these are? We'll take them out a little bit more closely another day. These are ladybugs, and we also got a new iPad because Miss Amy needs to up her tech game. And today Millie is going to show you, we're going to make a garden journal. She wants to go in my sleeve because the light is so bright. And we're going to make a entomologist kit. And an entomologist is just a big science word for a scientist who studies insects. So I'm going to show you what to collect around your house to make your own entomologist kit. And if you don't have a fancy box like mine, I'm going to show you how to improvise one of your own, but we're going to do that a little bit later. So we're going to start with one of my favorite. Can I trust you to stay on the table? I don't know about that. I'm going to put Millie away. Spencer's looking for his sunbeam. He always likes to find a sunny place to lay. Maybe we'll have to hunt for Spencer after, because we'll know Millie is safe in her cage. Bye. But usually we have to hunt for Spencer when he's out here because he likes to go back and forth between the sun and the shade. So let me just get my chair ready. And we're going to read Whose Garden Is It? By Mary Ann Hoberman and illustrated by Jane Dyer. So we've got, looks like a little boy and maybe his grandma. All right. Whose garden is it? Whose garden is it? Mary Ann Hoberman. Look at that little guy. Ooh, she's got some tomatoes growing. Mrs. McGee went out walking one day, and as she was cheerfully wending her way, she passed by a garden with colors so bright. She never had seen such a beautiful sight. How splendid, how pleasant, how simply exquisite. This garden is perfect. But whose garden is it? The gardener answered, "Well, it's clear as can be. This garden you see belongs only to me. I am the owner, and everyone knows it. I am the person who plants it and grows it. See how I keep it in first-rate condition? No one can come in without my permission." The gardener bowed and allowed her to pass, then went back to weeding and seeding the grass. He grumbled to see that some lettuce was gone, and stamped on some strange bumpy lumps in his lawn. Then Mrs. McGee heard a sharp little squeak. Up popped a rabbit who started to speak. He says it is his, but I cannot agree. If no one can come here, well then what about me? I've lived my whole life here. Just see how I dine. He grows me my dinner. This garden is mine. Not so, sniffed the woodchuck from under a wall. You eat just a little, but I eat it all. I gobble each bud and each leaf and each vine. I eat the whole garden. This garden is mine. It's mine, twittered the bird from high in a tree. The worms in the garden were put there for me. Not so, sighed the worm. Why, I make the soil fine, and that's why I'm put here. This garden is mine. Right? They all need each other to have a healthy garden. It's mine, the wasp grumbled. I've built a fine nest here. It's mine, buzzed the honeybee. You're just a pest here. I pollinate flowers. It's easy to see. This garden would not even be without me. Or me, bragged the butterfly, begging your pardon. I, too, spread the pollen all over this garden. It's mine, squeaked the squash bug. No, mine, said the flea. No, mine, snapped the beetle. It's planted for me. Not so, said the snake, hissed from under a pine. I feast on you fellows. This garden is mine. It's mine, groaned the mole. It's full of my furrows. It's mine, squeaked the vole. See my bumps and my burrows? The toads and the turtles, the squirrels and the hares, the chipmunks and crickets all claimed it was theirs. Right? That's because a healthy garden is a family for everybody. Then Mrs. McGee heard a hum in her ear. Who was that calling? What did she hear? It's mine, a plant rustled. I blossom in season. If this is a garden, well then I am the reason. No, mine, a weed whistled, a wave in the breeze. You have to be planted. I grow where I please. It's mine, breathed the soil. That is perfectly clear. Nothing could grow here if I were not here. It's mine, barked the tree, for I shelter and shade you. And as my leaves fall, year by year, I have made you. It's mine, smiled the sun, shining down on the tree. I bring heat, I bring light. Nothing lives without me. Nothing lives without me. That is perfectly plain. My showers bring flowers. It is mine, cried the rain. Right? We need it all. The sunlight, the rain. Then Mrs. McGee heard a faint little sound. Something was murmuring under the ground. Something that seemed as if she were quite near it. And holding her breath, she bent low to hear it. It is mine, the seed whispered. Although I am small, I am the beginning, the start of it all. The others may help me, but all of them know, without me to grow from, no garden would grow. The sun was now setting. the day growing late, the gardener called as he walked out the gate. Now, wasn't my garden a fine place to visit? But still she kept wondering. And are you still wondering? Pondering, wondering. Well, whose garden is it? So, as you guys know, I have a not very large but very varied garden back here. I don't have any grass. My grass grows teeny tiny in the front. And it takes not just me and Todd to keep this garden working. It takes all of the creatures and all of the plants that live back here. I've got my big tree who we're going to meet later on in the season. The tree helps by shedding its leaves, which then the worms turn into soil. And then the plants drop the seeds, and we've got the birds who come and move the seeds around. And we've got all of our garden helpers here on the table. Some of these helpers are carnivores, like these ladybugs. They eat the pest bugs. That keeps the garden healthy. Then we've got the decomposers, like the snails and the worms. They eat our waste. Millie, too, does her job as a decomposer. And then we have our pollinators, things like butterflies and bees. It takes everything to make a healthy garden. And truly, people are probably the least important part of what it takes to make a healthy garden. So I'm going to clip in, and we're going to do our garden journal. And I'm going to teach you how to make an entomologist kit, and then that'll be it. We'll look for Spence in the garden, and we'll get started. So, just like how we did with our bird journal, we're going to make a garden journal, and we're going to use this journal not for just insects. We're going to do it for everything. So I added a few extra pages, took some paper, put my staples in, and we're going to start by drawing a picture. Well, actually, no. First, we're going to do the words. No, we're going to start with the picture because that's the best way to start. Whenever we write, right, we always want to organize our thinking. And the best way to do that is by drawing a picture. Now, I'm going to sort of draw an idealized version of my garden. So I'm going to put some hosta. I've noticed I've got some irises. I'm very happy about that. We had irises, beautiful irises, when we first bought the house. And then our tree grew too big and it put shade, so we had to move them. That's what I mean, like it takes everything. And the garden is always changing and always growing. So what works one year might not work year after year. We've got some bushes, and I've got some little trees and some big trees. My little tree is called wisteria, and if I ever get my big tree under control, my little tree will start to make these purple flowers. I have them in the front and on the side of my house, but you got to get the arborist in to do some pruning. So an arborist is kind of like a tree doctor. They come in and they make sure your tree is big and healthy. So we're going to add some flowers. I tend to like purple. Anybody that has ever been in my STEM lab and has asked knows that purple is my favorite color. And we're going to add maybe a butterfly in our garden, some pollinators, right? Maybe a bee. I have new crayons coming. Millie really trashed all my crayons. Maybe we'll put some worms in the soil. all of those creatures from our book, right? And then I'm going to take my big black marker and I'm going to write garden. Make sure you can see. So G, R, guard, D, guard, guard, N. Got that N sound on the end. Garden. And then we're going to do journal. J. And then I'm gonna help with these vowels because they're tricky. O-U. R. Journ. N. Journ. All. Garden journal. And it's okay if you don't hear every sound. If you just write down the sounds that you hear, most grown-ups are smart enough that they'll be able to read your kid writing. So usually when I used to teach beginning writers in pre-K and kindergarten, we just started with the consonants, and if they didn't get those vowel sounds, we just skipped it and moved right on. So if I was writing with kids in my classroom, we wouldn't even have vowels in a lot of these words. Garden would be G-R-D-N, and journal would be J-R-N-L. That's a little teaching tip from Miss Amy to anyone who is looking to start doing some writing with their children. We always start with kid writing. So I know a varied group of ages are watching this. So if you're a very little kid, maybe you might just find the first letter or the first and the last letter. If you are a beginner, you might pick out all the consonants. And if you're a pro, then you might be starting to guess at those vowels. It all depends on how old you are and how, where you are. Are you a beginner? Are you a beginner? Are you a pre-beginner? If you're a pre-beginner, you just might be working on the pictures, and that's okay. So we're going to put our garden journal away. I'm going to show you what's in my entomologist kit. Now, this is a box. I've been doing this for a long time, so I've collected a lot of bug collecting tools. The first thing you need is a safe place to keep your critter. So let me pour this stuff out. So I've got this box, and it's nice. It's got a lid that snaps on. It's got a handle, so I always carry it from the bottom just because you never know, but it's got air holes for whoever you put in here to breathe. Now, I'm going to warn moms and dads who think that this is good enough for all critters. Some critters are so small they can even sneak out through these. So for that, I have this, which is cheesecloth. And don't make the mistake I did, which is just putting it over the top and thinking that's good. It's stretchy, and the guys will crawl out through that too. So you want to really fold it a couple of times over, or even better, get an old t-shirt and cut it, and then they definitely won't be able to get out. So you sort of fold it and layer it, and then you can put the lid on, and then that will deter them from crawling out. And if you bring them into your house like Miss Amy does, or bring them into her classroom like I do, you won't be chasing down all assortment of insects. The best thing to do is to just not even bother with this, because we want all living creatures to stay in nature. Just use this as a temporary thing. So catch your insect or your bug, arachnid, arthropod, whatever it is you're going to be looking at, put it in your container, observe it for a little while, and then set it back out into nature, because these guys are not pets. I keep them for a little bit, but then everybody ends up going into my garden. Even Gary, we're going to get ready to say goodbye to. I was going to release them at school. I'm not sure if that's going to happen this year. So I don't want to keep them for a second year in captivity. I think that that's cruel. Even though they're eating probably better than they would eat in real life. So the first thing is the container. Then I have some tools. And the important thing, the best thing to use when you're catching insects and bugs, truly, is your fingers and a lot of patience. Because we always want to make sure that we don't squeeze too tightly. But I've got other things that can be useful. A net, and if you don't have a net, you can make a net by just improvising and taking some cheesecloth and attaching it to a stick. Then I've got tweezers. These are plastic tweezers, and they've got little sponges glued on them so that when you pick up an insect, you don't mush it, because you don't want to do that. That's why your fingers are good if you are small and don't have great fine motor skills. Then I have a tiny shovel, but you could use maybe a plastic spoon if you don't have a tiny shovel. And this is just a stirrer from a drink, and you can sort of lay it down, and certain insects will crawl on the stick, and then you can take, I should have left this up. Well, actually, you know what? I'll show you how we're going to use it with our ladybugs. I also have this handy tool. This is a magnifying glass, and it's also a ruler. So when you've been in the game as long as I have, you have come up with all of these kinds of things. I have a little eyedropper to give our friends water, as well as a mister, which is empty right now, but this is to give them, not everybody likes, insects are quite small, so you don't want to give them like a dish to drink out of like you would give a dog or a cat. They're so tiny they could drown in that, so you might want to have a mister. Now when we spray Gary, the children know at school, I have a big bottle of water and we just spray with a water bottle. So I'm gonna show you. It's very warm, and ladybugs are more active when it is warm. So I'm gonna see if I can, there we go. So I've got two crawling on my stick. See how easy that was? And they are crawling now around, oops, sorry guys. So you can see, and it doesn't have to be a plastic stick, but this way if you want to observe them up close. Where did he go? He's probably on my finger already. Oh, yep, there he is. So you can use all of your tools gently, always gently, right? And there he is on the table. See? Oops. They're quick. I don't know where he went. Oh, there you go. All right. I'm going to put these guys in the container. Now, if you don't have a fancy bug house like this, the easiest thing to do is to just take a recyclable container. And remember, insects they're living creatures, so the first thing they need is air. So you're going to want to take a pin or a nail and poke many, 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 many air holes. And you poke and you poke and you poke and you poke. And when you think that you're done poking, poke some more. And then if you want to be fancy schmancy, you can get out your markers and do some decorating. Now, I personally would not draw too much on my container because you want to be able to see your friends through there. Other ideas are spice jars, because they already have holes on the top. You know, anything that you have that's recyclable that you can poke a hole in, that would be good. If your parents have mason jars, you could take out the inner lining and replace it with cellophane and poke holes. And so then you've got your very own bug collecting kit. And we're going to take a peek, see if we can find the Spencinator. Oh, he's missing Todd. What's up, buddy? You ready to go in? All right, boys and girls, we'll let Spencer in and I'll see you tomorrow.